Hello, I'm Maya Jama and welcome to Talkback, a new BRITs topical music debate covering real issues in the music industry today. So festival season is well and truly upon us. Yes. A little bit of excitement. So that is what we're going to be chatting about today, specifically about a current trend that seems to be challenging musicians on the festival circuit. Promoters are trying to pack in more bands playing shorter sets, meaning artists have less time to connect with the audience. So joining me for this festival-themed debate today is Guardian journalist and music writer Tess Reidy, who actually wrote an article about this very topic. You've inspired the debate today, actually. We also have Lee. You created LeeFest. Massive, been described as like a mini Glastonbury. Yep. From some, quite incredible, to say the least. And of course, our very own artist in the studio, Lucy Rose. You've performed at many festivals. So starting with you, Tess, you have obviously written about loads of festivals before and been to quite a few in your time. Why do you think, as British people, we love a festival?
I think there's just a festival for everyone these days. So if you're into raving, you can find one that you're going to really like. If you're into like a foodie culture, there's that kind of thing. There's just different types for everybody, and that's why people of all ages now seem to be going to festivals. And I think people are going instead of going on other kinds of holidays. It's like, what festivals am I going to this summer, as opposed to, am I going to Greece? Am I going to Spain?
Yeah.
Yeah. What else might suit?
Yeah. Do you guys agree?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think festivals are kind of like mini little perfect worlds, you know, that just exist for a weekend. And so you just do all the things that you want to do in one place in 2 days. So, I mean, why wouldn't everybody love that?
And I mean, you created your own one. Yeah. I kind of know the backstory behind it, but I'm sure there's a few people out there that don't. Would you be able to explain how LeeFest started?
So LeeFest started when my friends and I were 16 and my parents went away on holiday, and they left me and my friends with one rule, which was you're not allowed to have a house party.
Okay.
And so we thought, obviously being 16, that we were like genius and we'd found a way around it. And so we did a festival in my back garden, because technically it wasn't in the house and technically it wasn't a party.
That is insane. How big of a garden did you have to be able to start a mini festival? Because mine is literally like a box and there'd be nothing going on down there.
It's tiny. It's just like a little garden in Croydon.
Yeah.
So yeah, not very big at all, but we managed to fit in like 150 people. And
amazing.
Like 10 bands.
That's crazy. 10 bands. And then from that year, it was just like, okay, carry on and on.
Yeah, it just kind of started snowballing, and now we've done, this is going to be our 11th year, and we're up to 5,000 people and 200 bands and like 12 stages and all sorts of things. Yeah.
And massive. And your parents, how did they feel when they found out that you had a mini festival?
I got grounded, yeah.
Okay.
I didn't get away
So there was a consequence.
Yeah, absolutely. But then, like after a couple of weeks, they found it quite funny, and then we started joking about it, and eventually got to the point that they let us do it again for the second year.
And now they're probably like, well, what a great idea it was.
Yeah.
Saying you couldn't have that party, look what's come from it.
Yeah.
Amazing. And Lucy, you've performed at loads and loads of festivals, but you obviously have your own shows as well. What is the difference in vibe?
Yeah, I think the difference is quite huge. There's parts of festivals that I enjoy more so, parts of doing my own gigs which I enjoy. Festivals, for me, have been a great way of more people discovering my music, people just wandering past a tent, especially for new bands. I think it's really important and is a great sort of stage for new music to be discovered. Sometimes at festivals I worry with the type of music I play is a lot slower, and I sometimes worry at festivals that people just want the upbeat stuff and just want to have fun and party. But that's one of my own insecurities, I think.
Yeah, because there's a bit of everything for everyone, really. Like, as you said, if you're into slow music, if you want to have a mini rave in somewhere, you want to go and sit and eat chips for an hour, you're sorted. What's been the best festival that you've performed at?
I wish I could come up with something that's less obvious than this, but I think when I played the other stage at Glastonbury, that was one of those moments in my life, because an artist like me, I could never, ever have expected to play in front of that many people and play on the other stage. And that's the beauty of it, the opportunity that it gives artists to play in front of a crowd they could never have drawn themselves. And I remember that just being one of those moments I don't think I'll ever forget.
Apart from your own, because that would be like, okay, what's your favourite festival?
I love Glastonbury just for the scale of it and the like sense of occasion that you get there. Like, you know, it feels like the whole nation is kind of invested in that somehow. So it's got that like incredible party spirit, similar to like the Olympics. On a much smaller scale, I very much like Festival, and the guys that run that are really cool. And good fun to hang out with. And a very small one called Shambhala, which is really tiny.
Massive fan
of Shambhala. It's really
Shambhala.
nice. And they got like a really nice like ethos about kind of like making their festival really green, that kind of really, they buy into that and they really push that really hard across. They do exactly what they kind of profess to do, which is really cool.
Yeah. I suppose to the main question, the reason why you're all here today is that set times appear to be getting a lot shorter for bands and artists, and there seems to be more people on each lineup. I'll start with you and go down. When did you first notice this, and what inspired your first post about it? Like, which festival did you see the lineup, or was it just an overall?
I think it was just the fact that you'd look at that the lineups were always being announced online. You'd look at them and it was like, okay, there's so many people on this, and often they look quite similar, the lineups too. Mm-hmm. And then I think I sort of realised it'd be quite difficult because there's so many festivals, for a festival to start and just have a small lineup and think they can sell all the tickets, because often, I guess you know more about this than I do, but often they lose money at the beginning. So I think, yeah, it was just a case of like, whoa, how are they managing? Like, how can they afford to get all these people on? And often, especially with DJs and things, they put them back to back, so it's not even like, oh, one artist has got an hour. It's like 2 artists are sharing in an hour. Mm-hmm. So it's quite a squish, I think. Yeah.
So it was no thing, just the lineups online for you.
Yeah.
And then what made you write about it? Were you like, okay, look, this needs to change. You're against the shorter times. What is your actual view?
I guess I see it as like, is it a bubble that's going to burst really with festivals? Like, is it a case of there are just too many and they're competing, and at the end of the day, are there enough people to go to them, or is it going to be that just more people are going to go to festivals? Like a bigger age group are going to go. Because often sort of people you might not have expected to go to festivals in the past, everyone seems to be going now. Mm. So I think I'm kind of interested to see what will happen with it. But yeah, I think they're just competing with each other really, and I just think, yeah, sort of see what happens there.
Yeah. Have you seen much criticism online of people saying they're against the shorter time sets? Or no?
Well, I've spoken to artists who say some of them at festivals think it's a good thing, because it means because often the crowd can be quite fluid, so they don't really want to do a really long set and then the crowd are wandering off halfway through, because that's kind of embarrassing. No one wants to clear the stage. Yeah. However, I think others feel that they don't get to showcase their music at all. You know, you either get to play the hits, or like if you're DJing, for instance, you just kind of get started and then it's like, okay, next person. Yeah. So I think it kind of varies, yeah.
How about you, Lee? How do you feel about it? I mean, you book the talent. What kind of lineups do you have at the moment, and how long do you give them?
Yeah, so our set times range from 20 minutes if you're kind of a lot earlier in the day to about an hour to an hour and 15 for headliners. Okay. But we've never really done anything much longer than that. So we haven't at any point thought, oh, we need to scale this back. Yeah. And make them shorter. I think for us, that short set time kind of or the shorter end of the set times versus 2.5 hours to headline Glastonbury or whatever, that works for us because of a few reasons. Firstly, people come to festivals because they want to see kind of all of their favourite artists in one place. So a big part of what we're delivering is a really varied experience. At LeeFest you can come and see some grime, followed by some folk, followed by some really camp house and disco, and some drag artists. And that whole variety is really kind of a part of what people are buying into. Yeah. But also at LeeFest we work with a lot of kind of emerging musicians, and we've got a great history of having put on some cool people for their first ever gigs, Years and Years and Bastille and London Grammar. Amazing. All kind of played with us first. And the stages at which they're playing in their career, they can't really play for much more than 20 minutes, half an hour at the most, because they've only got one EP out. Okay, cool. So to push them to kind of play for an hour is going to not really work out for them. We enjoy the shorter set times. I think from our side, we're pro it for the right kind of people, and I think the craft is in trying to put the right artists at the right time, so people could go and discover Lucy at the right time of day when they do want to kind of sit and focus for a bit, and not putting you on at 1 in the morning up against Wilkinson or something like that. I think if you go too long, it can get a bit tedious, kind of you know.
Yeah.
Especially if you're in the mindset of wanting to run around.
No, I fully get that. It makes sense in that sense when you think, like, you do only have a few songs. If you're a new artist, like, you probably only have about 2 songs that people would know or recognise, and then maybe 1 or 2 that you'd add in on the end. For you, 20 minutes, would that be way too short? Do you feel like, would you feel like you wouldn't have had enough time to do anything?
I think so, only because I'm on my 3rd record now, so I feel like 20 minutes wouldn't be enough. But I was thinking a lot about it all. I think for a new artist, an hour would be hard if you've got 1 album that may not even be out yet and you're meant to do an hour. Sometimes the good thing about a festival is you can put your best up and just the audience go crazy and you have a great time. But I think it must be really dependent on the acts, because I think for headline acts especially, and near the top of the bill, you don't want to just see hits, especially if you've bought, you know, the tickets are really expensive and you bought them to see Radiohead. I think if you watch Radiohead at Glastonbury for 2.5 hours, that's something as a fan you could never have dreamed of, something like that, and being able to hear all of your favourite songs. The thing that I've noticed more is changeover times becoming shorter and shorter. So I think festivals are trying to get more and more acts on to sell tickets, but then the changeover time between the acts is so short now. I think the quickest one I had was 20 minutes. So they have to get everything off drum kit, strip the stage, and you set up your entire, like, everything again, all the instruments, check it all, sound check it, get your monitors. And I think the amount of times you watch acts who are having technical problems, especially at Glastonbury, I think Phoenix had technical problems. I think maybe Katy Perry, I could be wrong. But I do hear of more and more acts having technical issues because they're just like churning them over and over again, and there's not enough time for things to be set up properly. Yeah,
that was actually going to be my next question.
Was
like,
it? Sorry.
Yeah, no, you're fine. You answered your side. But what do you do in that case? Because with more acts, there is less time, as she was saying. And how do you change if you want, like, a massive production? There's not enough time for that, and artists are probably having to strip back some of their production. Is that a problem that you've ever faced?
I feel like it's a problem that we're careering towards, because just listening to Lucy speak, I'm like, oh yeah, we keep doing that. And like, you know, like when you're booking it in January, your head's not really in that space of thinking like, oh, all the technical details. You're like, I just want to create like the most amazing festival lineup that we can. So you put as much stuff in as you can. And I imagine I'm going to get an email in about a week's time from our production team being like, this just is impossible. There's no way we can do this. Particularly because lots of artists now are travelling with kind of bigger productions. They're putting on big shows. They're wanting, particularly at the top end, to create a really exciting experience. So they're travelling with lighting, or they're travelling with special effects. And so to switch all that in and out of stages quite quickly is tricky. So yeah, I think I'd never really considered it from a perspective of, like, you know, actually it's going to get to a point that you start to put too much kind of pressure and stress on the artists, and you're not going to be able to perform well enough. Yeah, your headspace, my headspace, especially if you've just set everything up and you're so stressed, you've just got it okay, and you go off stage, it's like, right, you're on in a minute, and it's like, how is anyone meant to be in a good, like, headspace and to go and perform and do their best when it's sometimes that stressful? Do you feel like, as a whole, having shorter set times would be better, but less artists? For example, a 45-minute set for most, some ranging to like half an hour, 45, but then less artists on the lineup and then more time in between. I would worry that the artists then that would automatically get dropped then are the new artists, you know, just because less people know of them, they're going to sell less tickets, and if you were going to cut down a bit. And I worry because festivals are very important, I think, for discovering new artists, and it's a great platform for new artists to be discovered. So my worry would be that, I mean, I don't know even if the logistics of just having more stages at a festival with the same acts, and then people can play longer and have longer changeovers instead of cramming everything onto 3 stages or something. Yeah. That in itself is kind of a vicious cycle from our side, because we did that and we're now up to like 12 stages, which is just insane. Like, you know, and you add a stage because you think, oh, that solves that problem, and then you've spent, like, you know, so much more money on a stage, so, you know, you've got to find ways to sell more tickets, which means you need better lineups and, you know,
more
kind of
Just
then
goes on
more
and on.
artists. So there's just this perpetual
cycle.
kind of like
Yeah.
on a runaway train of adding stages and lineups and bands. And
It is quite hard because you kind of think like what would be the ideal, and I mean me suggesting that's clearly not not the best solution.
Well, someone like Glastonbury's got, how many stages have they got?
oh
So
yeah,
many.
just like
But then again, that kind of makes Glastonbury because you can go and see so many acts and for a proper time, well, most of the time for a proper time, and different genres everywhere. Also, another question, like the genres of music like grime and hip hop, their sets are technically, typically, shall I say, more short than like a rock set. Is that right?
I think it can entirely depend on the artist.
Okay.
I think, yeah, so generally the longest sets tend to be like house and techno DJs
Right.
that we could put on for maybe up to like 5 or 6 hours sometimes. And the shortest, the shortest is emerging music, but that could be any genre.
Yeah.
I guess grime is, it's quite like high impact, so, you know. You
Sure.
want
I mean,
that
around
kind of
45
energetic-
minutes, usually when I go to see
Yeah.
acts on stage, it's like around that time, to an hour. And maybe because those kind of genres are more popular now, the rest of the sets are becoming that short. Do you feel?
I don't know. I don't know if we change. I think we try our best to look at each individual artist and speak with them like ahead of the show and work out a set time with their agent, because they will have an idea of, you know, going into summer festivals. Maybe you can tell us more about this. I don't know, but it seems like artists of a certain level tend to sort of like prepare a set and a show that they will then take out for that whole summer, and not vary that too much. So they have an idea of, oh, you know, we want an hour and 10 minutes for this particular show, or we want 40 minutes. And we'll try and accommodate that wherever possible. At the
I
top
didn't know
end.
that, really.
Yeah, I think if
So
you're
you don't dictate the set lengths, the artists sometimes do.
I think it sort of starts at a particular point on
The
the
highest
bill.
If you're a
ones up the
massive
bill.
artist.
Yeah. Yeah, because particularly if you're travelling with kind of a big AV show or a big pyrotechnics show, you know, all of that has to be very well rehearsed and sort of put in. Maybe this is just more on the pop side of things, that
But it
kind of
happens.
stuff.
Yeah.
I think in terms of the big shows, though, like a lot of people, or some people are going to festivals and it's quite about Instagramming the latest thing that's going on. So if there's big light shows and things like that, I think some people just want to go and see the show, like say they've been there, take a picture, take a video and then move on. I think that's one of the reasons why there's kind of shorter set times in a way, because people just want to go and have that moment and then move on.
Yeah, it's true. Because I feel like you just kind of get a highlight reel online anyway, and there are a lot of social media festival goers, basically, if you can call it that. People that just want to go to post that they're there. How about you when you're on stage? Do you feel like you can connect with an audience in the space of like half an hour properly?
I've definitely said before when I've had like a half an hour set, which definitely feels short now, I've said I wish I could talk more, but I just don't have time. I'm just going to try and play as many songs as possible. And I think that's something you hear more and more bands saying, which is, I would talk, but I just want to play all my songs.
Yeah.
So you're definitely losing that interaction that you can get with a longer set, where an artist can feel a little bit more like at ease.
I hear you.
It's a problem.
What do we think the future of festivals looks like now? Like, do you think there's going to be a change? Is it going to be more and more artists now in shorter times? Or do you feel like the promoters and festival runners will maybe cut down on the amount of acts and keep it just to the most popular ones? Any idea?
Well, from promoter side,
What are you going to do?
I'm going to heed Lucy's advice. I'm going to make sure when I leave now that that we have decent amounts of change over time. Because you know there is a lot of pressure on promoters to create really exciting bills and experiences, and to ultimately, I guess, sell enough tickets to survive. But it's going to get to a point that if we keep pushing artists and they don't have great time doing it, they're not going to give good shows, and then nobody will have a good time. So maybe we're at the point now of like finding that balance, or kind of pulling it back a bit.
Yeah.
I think I agree, but I also think festivals or promoters are going to have to coming up with new ways to make theirs different, because I don't think you can just have a situation where everyone's got this packed lineup and it's in a field and you just got to hope the weather's good. Like, I think I'm noticing like this summer there are festivals in kind of abandoned prisons in Estonia and things, and people are trying to find the most interesting venues that they can come up with. But I don't know whether or not, because also that ties in with whether or not it's Instagrammable. Like people want to be at something that's really beautiful, or something that's really interesting, and so I don't know whether like how long that can last really. Like how strange can the venue get when it becomes kind of impractical?
Yeah.
Or so I think we'll see what happens. But I think there's definitely something that's going to change, because you can't just keep having this many festivals with similar lineups. Yeah. But then again, maybe everyone is really into them, and just more people will go. Older people might be more into them, and younger kids. So.
I know what you mean. I think there's so many festivals now, everyone could be a little bit more specialist into what they do well as a festival. Sometimes they all feel like they're doing a similar thing now, and everyone's too scared to choose maybe like an edgier lineup, which was, you know, sometimes you think, oh, Reading and Leeds is the rock festival, and then there'll be like a really surprising headline for that, and you're like, is that rock, or is this even a rock festival? Like I've played Reading and Leeds a few times and I love it, but I'm a folk artist, so it's like, I don't know whether festivals can be more specific about what they want to achieve and book a lineup which is really strong in that sort of area, which all people who like that sort of thing will love it, instead of trying to please the masses, which is, I think everyone now is playing it safe, pleasing everybody and trying to sell as many tickets. And I don't think they need to. Like, how long does it take for Glastonbury to sell out? Like
seconds.
Seconds. So you could do that over and over again every single weekend for every summer, and there'll still be enough people that will want to go. I think you're right. More and more people are discovering festivals, discovering it's not just horrid toilets in a field that you think you're going to hate. It's actually really an amazing, fun experience where you lose all your inhibitions and have a weekend like no other.
People also want something quite exclusive, I think, these days. So there's like invite-only festivals that are happening, and ones that just keep the numbers down, so actually it sells out so quickly that then there's a lot of hype and you can't get a ticket, and it means you'll want to go next year.
Yeah.
So I think that's going to be something that people are going to try and do, just to kind of keep their brand lasting longer, perhaps.
I feel like if I was to make a festival, I'd probably do one like that, where it's like there's only like 200 tickets, and
Just
if you
my
can't
friends.
get it, and then everybody talk about it out in my friend group and then see where it goes. Well, thank you guys so much for coming down and speaking to me. I feel like we haven't actually got to the bottom of whether or not there should be less people on the lineup or longer set times, but it's just to see what happens in the future, I suppose.
Conversation starter.
Yeah, we've started it. Well, I mean, you started it. Thank you, Tess. But it's begun now. It's branched out. And thank you guys at home for watching. Keep your eyes on the channel next month for more exclusive Brits content, and we'll see you soon. Bye.